Right, we want to move on and talk about the influence that the 1995 team have had on the 5 in a row. There's been a number of pictures over the last few days posted. Declan Lally posted one on Twitter from 1997 of J.O., Jim, and that's Paul Clark on the left-hand side there. And then, of course, their pictures were doing the rounds again, the three of them. And so there's Jason Sherlock in the middle. I think that's the Cork jersey, isn't it? Yeah. A blood-stained and a bloodied mouth on Jim Gavin's, the Tyrone jersey, sorry. And then beside them is Paul Bealin, who joins us now. Paul, good morning to you. How you doing?
Good morning. Good, thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, so the 1995 crew, did you know that you had such an incredible brains trust on the field of play with you when you went out to battle every day?
Yeah, well, it's fantastic. I mean, those guys you mentioned in '95 were a special group. Jim, Jason, and Paul Clark, and Mick Deegan also, who was part of that squad, have gone on to fantastic things. Did I know? I probably didn't, but looking back on it, I'm not surprised. Even Pat Gilroy, who started the 2011 success of this current team, was part of that team also. So they were a special bunch of players back then. We didn't win. We won one on Ireland, and we were beaten in two. Won 2 National Leagues and 4 Leinsters back to back. So they were a successful team, but probably didn't get the accolades we would have liked them to get. And I'm not surprised, because they were very committed and very dedicated. And I think one of the things that people forget, you can have all the money in the world to invest in players and strength and conditioning, but the decision-making process is really important. And these guys were very good in '95 in the decision-making, and this team that they have at the moment, the decisions on the ball at times are crucial to win games, and that would have helped us over the years, particularly on our Saturday night.
Yeah, people talk about the football intelligence of this current group. How do you coach that in a team, Paul? How does Jason Sherlock and Jim Gavin influence players to make good decisions under pressure?
It's a difficult one. It's a combination of, I suppose, intelligence and repetitiveness. So, I mean, there would have been a lot of drills that they would have done that people would understand over and over and over again and repeat themselves. And if you just look at the example of the goal that Owen Murchan got, I mean, I've no doubt that Peter Keane at half-time said, you have to man up on the likes of Paul Mannion and Kieran Kilkenny and Conor O'Callaghan. And that's what happened. They went really, really touch tight. The ball broke in the middle just from the throw in, and the whole middle was wide open. And rather than the Kerry lads coming in to defend the goal, they stayed with their players because they were frightened, not that they wouldn't get the ball. And it opened up, and we got a goal from it. And in fairness to Owen Murchan, he wasn't looking to pass the ball. It opened up, and he made the decision that he was going to take the goal or carry the ball as long as he possibly can. And he did the right thing by taking the shot himself. So it is one of those things that the thought process of the decision making is hugely important. You can have all the athleticism in the world, but if you make the wrong decisions in the wrong time in the heat of battle, you just don't win games. And this Dublin team have an abundance of that.
I didn't realise that Paul Bealin was your freshers coach.
He was, yeah.
Did you win
our age now?
Did you win anything?
I think we won one game. He wasn't dealing with.
We were building blocks back then.
Yeah. Let's just say DCU wasn't the behemoth it is nowadays.
Exactly.
Back then.
Exactly. That was in '96 or something, '95, '96, something like that. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Years, the golden years. Yeah.
We good crack though. Yeah. No, Paul. I have to say the Cluxton thing is going to be a big one for obviously the squad. What's your feelings on it? If he goes, if he doesn't go, I know there's plenty of obviously really good goalkeepers in the Dublin senior club kind of setup, but he has been unbelievable for them. And again, myself and Gerard were just saying, I think he's player of the year for me this year.
Yeah, I mean, well, if I go back, I think he should have got more than he should have got more All-Stars in recent years. And I'm not taking away from anyone who's achieved All-Stars in goal, but he's been phenomenal in goal for us. And he has changed the landscape as a goalkeeper, particularly with his kickouts. Look, goalkeepers can last much longer than outfield players. He's in great condition himself, and it's really up to himself whether he can stay. I hope he does stay. He's a big part of that squad. Not so much with his shot stop and the kickouts or one platform, but it's what he brings. When you look at the high balls that come in the last day, knowing that Stephen Cluxton is coming to fist that ball away, and it's obviously being well drilled that that Dublin are weak with high balls coming in, and in fairness, Kerry tested him in the first 15 minutes. But with Cluxton coming out there and breaking those balls and coming away with them, it's something that it just gives you confidence. If you're in the full back line, you're not that nervous about your goalkeeper, because he is the really confident player that you have, and he'd be a huge loss. He's brilliant at his kickouts. He's brilliant at his shot stopping, but it's what he brings outside of that. I managed him for Parnell's for a couple of years in dressing rooms and that, and I've seen him firsthand. And he's not the loudest in a dressing room, but when he speaks, everybody, you wouldn't hear a pin drop. Everyone listens to what he has to say. So I've no doubt he's carried that on into the inter-county scene with Dublin.
Yeah, you can see there's a scenario where he continues and it's not entering his head at all to leave at the moment, and you can see him going on to his early 40s and having an amazing kind of next 4 or 5 years. But you can also see that the toll that this takes on players is much greater than we'll ever understand as well, and that maybe he will just decide to say, all right, I've had enough. So any one of a number of outcomes are here, and I think the same, Paul, goes for Jim Gavin as well. Like, he was very emotional on the field afterwards, as happy as you've ever seen him, and it can't be easy being the person on whom all of the pressure sits with that Dublin setup. No,
you're right. It's a phenomenal amount of pressure, but I do think that that 5 in a row that we all talked about, and I know they weren't even allowed to mention it during the interviews throughout the whole year. But a friend of mine had lunch before the first game at Kieran Kilkenny and Dean Rock, and he said, Paul, it was just unbelievable that they were in having lunch and there was people talking about the 5 in a row. He says, we went out to the car park, he met people talking about the 5 in a row. They were crossing the road and the fella stopped in the car talking about the 5 in a row. So it must have been phenomenal to try and get that out of your head and stay focused. The weight of history on people's shoulders the first day was phenomenal, and I've no doubt that the players themselves would have felt it. And I do genuinely believe that the All Ireland was won the first day, 14 against 15 in the last 10 minutes, that we kept ourselves in the game to give ourselves a chance to go out on Saturday night and win that 5 in a row. And people just expressed themselves. The really good players stood up again and expressed themselves on Saturday evening. And it was a fantastic occasion. And the pressure on Jim Gavin would have been phenomenal coming into those games. And even the changes at half-time, I thought, were brilliant. I mean, he could have started Michael Darragh-McCauley in the middle, and he didn't. And he moved James back and brought Howard in to keep that mobility around the middle. And so they were really moves that you need to give credit for. The balance was still right. And it really, for Jim to stay on, I don't know what people are talking about, even him going. Even same with Stephen. I think maybe some of the country lads are wishing that they'll go and give the rest of the country a chance. But they don't need to be thinking of that. They just need to really, really enjoy what they've achieved, which is history, and they're part of that very, very famous team who've made every player very proud, including the 95 lads who've been involved with that squad. So
it's your own instinct that you think, Paul, that they will end up staying?
There's no reason for them to leave. They can all add something to it. You only have to get 1 or 2 golden nuggets every year to keep that team ticking over. There's no reason, because he's achieved everything that he needed to achieve in terms of final. The 6 in a row doesn't have the same ring to it. The 7, all of those games, if they are successful, but there's no need for them to even think of that. And I suppose if you don't feel the hairs on the back of your neck, with 82,500 people there on Saturday night as part of a Dublin player, well, then they probably will step away. And some players, that does happen. They don't feel it anymore, so it's time to move on. And only the players themselves or the management team themselves will realise that. But there's no reason whatsoever for those guys to even be thinking that way. Okay, what do they all bring as individuals? Jason Sherlock's role seems to be responsible for the fluidity of the attack, and obviously there's a huge basketball influence that you can see, and they've had basketball coaches in with the setup over the last number of years as well. You can see at various stages that there's pre-programmed moves. There's just a lot of learning that they're taking from that sport. What else is Jason bringing? What's Paul Clarke bringing? Well, Jason will be working with the forwards consistently, and Paul Clarke will be working with the midfielders and the half-back line, half-forward line. what did they bring? They've all played in those positions. Don't forget Jim Gavin, when he played, when Meath were very, very strong, with Graham Geraghty would bring back. Jim Gavin's role in Leinster finals was to stop, which was kind of unheard of back then, to stop Graham Geraghty coming forward and sacrifice himself. So he knows, what you need to do, and so all of those players know what they need to do. So they come with great respect. Paul Clark's been around the team and the squad in the Oborne Cup. He's been, Jason Sherlock has been around the underage teams and the senior team. So they know all about systems and how they need to play. They've a fantastic backroom team. Brian Cullen is a strength conditioning coach as well. So he surrounds himself with, Jim Gavin as the captain of it all and leading that. He surrounds himself with really good people who bring something to it. And, Mick Dean before that was looking after the defensive work, and he's got Bertie there, he's got Billy Bourne there. So he's got some really good people that he trusts, and that's really, really important. Jim trusts that the advice that they would give to players around the squad are hugely important, and that's the important bit. I think those three guys in particular now are because they won All Ireland together, they trust each other, and that's really, really important. And then the respect that those players get, or those players give to Paul, Clark, Jason, and Jim is rightly deserved.
Yeah, Paul, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning.
Cheers, thanks, Jared.
Cheers, Paul.
Paul Bealin giving us some thoughts on his teammates from 1995. Desi Farrell, obviously, the other one there that is in the shake-up if something does happen.
Desi was involved with the hurlers, I know, this year in the backroom team there, and obviously he'd be a natural fit. You would think, would know a lot of those lads from obviously the under 21 teams over the years. Yeah. So it's quite amazing when you look at it. There's a lot of fellas there, and there's a lot of guys obviously involved and have been involved. But they're the go-to fellas you usually go to. You come into a management setup, you think, who can I trust? Who do I know is made of the right stuff? Who can convey a message? Who's good with people? And you surround yourself it's. Sam and Jason obviously played together in St. Oliver Plunkett's, and Mick Gavin was the manager who was on that team as well. And Jason used to talk about Jim Gavin, right, and said he's a really funny character and all this kind of stuff. And I've heard that a bit, and I only met him briefly, and they were good friends. They were very, very good friends. So obviously they moved that on, and they were always talking about the game. And obviously, I think Jason's influence is pretty serious, especially with the forwards and the movement of the forwards. And he would have always been a guy like that. Even in the dressing room before games or in the lead up to games, he was constantly thinking about how the actual forward unit of a club team can improve. So he's obviously bringing that into a setup, and I heard him talking yesterday saying that they all want to learn, they all want to improve, they all want to get better. When you're surrounded by that, that's a pretty powerful dynamic to have in a squad where people they're not second guessing you, they're not even questioning the fact, they're just saying, give me more, I want to learn, whether they have the capacity to learn or not and really layer up. But they seem to have. Their intelligence level is a big thing as well. I think there's a high intelligence level, and generally with winning teams, you get a relatively high IQ across the team because people have to take on a lot of information relatively quickly and in small bursts. Yeah, it's not like you have that team all week.
Exactly. It's not like you can go in and sit and take somebody aside. That's why those kind of trips away are so beneficial, because you've got a couple of days where you actually do have a half an hour where you can go in to somebody and say, we're just going to show you these 3 videos now where you do this thing repeatedly. Maybe you should try this other thing and do that a bit more.
Well, Kieran Deely wrote a good article, I don't know if it was yet in the Examiner, where he was saying that one of the great things about obviously the conditioning of the Dublin team is that is the length of the season as well. One of the big things for me this year getting into the Super 8s, I had to get me was the fact that the squad are together then for an extended period of time. This is some of the things that people don't see. So you have all the meetings, never mind the training sessions, you have all the meetings with that. You have the touch points with regard to the S&C coaches, the physios, the one-on-ones that you can potentially do.
And then the video evidence to show them afterwards.
Oh, massive. So all of that just, instead of being knocked out in June or July, you actually have an extended run of another 5 or 6 or 7 weeks where you're having maybe 20 or 30 more chances to actually put your blueprint onto a team. And people talk about 2-tier championships. you know, and I know we're little bit off the point here, but if you are a second-tier champion or a second-tier team and you're trying to improve, you're not going to improve getting knocked out of the championship every year in June because you're not together.
No.
So, and why would you be a sponsor? Like, why would you say, do you know what, I'm going to sponsor that team? Like, myself and yourself decide we're going to have a blueprint for Kildare, and we go to Intel, and we've done a really serious presentation. Part of that is, listen, I want you to come on a journey with us. With Kildare, it may take 5 years, it may take 10 years. Here's the money where we need it. Money's going to go down into development squads, money's going to go into whatever it is, right? And money's going to go to the senior team. We may be in the second tier, I'm not saying that, but we may be in. But what we're going to do is we're going to have so many meetings, we're going to improve, we're going to get out of that, we're going to win that. That's our first aim. Then we're going to get into the other stuff, and we're going to, like, you all of a sudden, every county should be aspiring to that. Every county should be aspiring to try and keep a group of players involved as long as you can. Okay, now, I know I'm jumping around because the club stuff is obviously very important, but it's the same thing with the club. Yeah. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter what team it is. You can't just have bursts here and then off you go and there's nothing going on in the summer and then you just come back in for a quick fire round of 3 or 4 weeks. It should be, here's a period of time, we're going to get as much as we can within that period of time, and it makes it obviously beneficial for everyone involved, be it sponsors, be it coaches, be it whoever.
Yeah, no, it works. In terms of how catchable they are, say Cluxton stays and say Jim Gavin stays and say, you know, the 4 of those players retire who we've been talking about, and there's a bunch of under 20s, under 21s still to come up. How do you make them automatic favourites next year if the majority of that team, say Connolly comes back and plays a full year?
I think they're favourites again next year, absolutely.
Are they heavy favourites?
I don't think they're heavy favourites. If you're saying if Cluxton and Gavin go,
if they stay,
well, I think either way, I wouldn't make them heavy favourites. The first thing that you require to get up to the standard of Dublin is you need the conditioning levels. And the conditioning levels doesn't mean fitness. It means power, it means stamina, it means all those different things. It means physique, it means the ability to get hit over 70 minutes and be able to go again. And you need not just 15, but you need 25 guys who are at that level. That's the first thing. I think teams are getting there. So you've got your Donegal, your Tyrone, your Mayo, your Kerry, obviously. Cork will come. There's no doubt about it. And you need success like that. You need to be able to say, yeah, you're picking these guys, as Paul just said, cherry-picking fellas off the conveyor belt who are going, these guys can make a difference, no matter what age. Like, look at Clifford. You know, 19, 20, 21, 22 years of age. If you've got the size, the speed, the power, the stamina, the agility, and the skill, above all, you will make a difference. So I think it is catching. There isn't that glaringly obvious, I think, gap. And I think the coaching of teams is getting a lot better.